Hey, Nick.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Uh, to start, can you just talk about yourself for a bit? Tell us a little about yourself, and then introduce the foundation.
Sure. So, hi, everybody. I'm Nick Ducoff. I lead institutional growth at the Solana Foundation. I joined the Solana Foundation 2.5 years ago. SOL was $20. There was 300 million of TVL on the blockchain. There's now 15 billion, growing very fast. Very exciting place to be. I joined the Solana Foundation. Previously, I was in venture capital. Before that, I was a founder of 2 technology startups, and started my career 20 years ago as a securities lawyer, working on large tech transactions. The very first deal I worked on was the MySpace acquisition by Fox.
That's pretty cool. Hmm. Um, so I want to talk about the foundation. So the foundation's been central, right? Influential, big force behind the ecosystem for Solana. Um, can you tell us, I guess, what the foundation's mission is, and then I'd say to follow on, if it's not focused on institutions, can you talk a bit about how the foundation is moving in that direction or leaning into institutions as it relates to your role?
So, at the Token Genesis event, Solana Labs, which was the entity that built the Solana blockchain as we know it, granted 20% of the token supply to a Swiss nonprofit, the Solana Foundation, with a mission to, for eternity, and that's the timeline that we operate on, support the growth, decentralization, and resilience of the Solana network. And we do this through trying to be helpful. That's kind of a meme in venture capital, is, being helpful, but we earnestly do try to support, every builder in the Solana ecosystem as much as we can. With 65 people, that's the size of the Solana Foundation, so we're quite small. In fact, we're smaller today than we were 2.5 years ago when I joined, and the network is much bigger and is having a much bigger global impact. And the reason that we're able to do that with a smaller headcount today is because of folks like DeFi Dev Corp, who are now helping propagate the mission of the foundation with aligned economic incentives. And I think, that's the flywheel that we always hoped would get going. And now we're really starting to see it manifest, and it's very exciting.
Thank you. Um, okay, I think that answered the first part of the question on uh, the mission. Can you talk more about the institutional focus and what you're working on?
Sure. So institutional means a lot of things. First of all, Solana, of course, is global. The statistics that you saw DK share earlier, there's 80 some odd million monthly users of the network. Those folks are all over the world. And so we also work and support institutions all over the world. That's banks, asset managers, and real world asset issuers of all shapes and sizes. Domestically, that may be some of the largest GSIBs, the uh, Bank of New York Mellons, the Citigroups, the JP Morgans. Globally, that's the HSBCs, the DBSs. And on the asset management side, of course, virtually every large asset manager that has built something on the blockchain has probably also built and deployed on Solana. BlackRock, Apollo, Hamilton Lane, Franklin Templeton, Brevin Howard, list goes on and on. And then increasingly, that's also capital markets. So, we're grateful for the activity that, DeFi Dev and other DATs are undertaking, and, educating the market like you're doing today with this event. And then, that also is, of course, global, again, in part thanks to the work you're doing, as you mentioned, in Asia and elsewhere. And, we're now seeing passive vehicles. Last week was a big week for the Solana ecosystem. The first 2 spot ETFs launched, Bitwise and Grayscale. Cumulatively, over $500 million have flowed in the first 5 trading days, which is incredible because in the same time period, something like 1.2 billion has flowed out of Bitcoin and Ethereum. And we saw last week also the launch of the first Solana ETF in Hong Kong. So, and for a long time, there's been ETFs in Europe and elsewhere. And in Europe, by the way, the staking ETFs are among the highest performing, higher in many cases than Bitcoin products, because of the yield. Solana generates, because of its proof of stake mechanism, it generates a yield of roughly 7-8%, depending on fees.
Cool. Thank you. I'm not 100% sure that you can answer this. Feel free to, not answer if you want. How do these conversations actually come about? Are you doing kind of outbound to some of these businesses to pitch them, or are they coming to you and then I guess, can you tell a story maybe about one of these institutions that you named and what the interactions were and kind of how it got going? Or if you can't, I can try to ask someone else.
Yeah, it's not a secret. I think all of business is ultimately relational, right? It's everything is a human business. That's why you've been able to bring everyone here together today. And so absolutely, it's been mostly just pounding the pavement. Lot of outbound outreach. So DK was up here saying how early it is and how he's trying to tell the Solana story and share the exciting growth of the Solana network. That's with all the data and charts that we have today. 2.5 years ago, the charts, we were much earlier in the J curve, right? Like a J curve looks like this, and I think on a lot of dimensions, we're kind of past the elbow of the curve, and we're clearly trending up. I think there's a lot more room to run up, tons, but 2.5 years ago especially, we were in the part of the curve before the bend, and so it looked very flat. And the selling the story and the narrative was much harder, and I think it's getting much easier. It's still very hard. I had a meeting last week with one of the world's largest financial institutions, and we had to do Solana's a smart contract blockchain like Ethereum. You can program applications on top of it, and it's really still a lot of education, bringing folks along, helping them understand why it's so important, and why the game is far from won. And I think that ultimately will be an incredible tailwind for Solana.
But when you do, I guess, pitch Solana or do the outbound or some of the conversations you just were describing, how do you pitch it?
Fastest, cheapest, most scalable blockchain in the world. Increasingly, we're using the word technology platform instead of blockchain. We're trying to, kind of expand the TAM of mindshare. Blockchain's this, technology's this, and ultimately Solana is a new internet, and that's a new financial internet, and that's the way we think about it. Folks may have heard us talk about this idea of internet capital markets, 24/7 global liquidity in a single trading venue, all participants on Earth able to participate. And I think that's the vision that we're going for. And, again, one step at a time, but making more progress every day.
Okay, and thank you. In some of these conversations, can you talk about the objections or negative feedback you get?
Yeah, there's tons. Isn't Solana just meme coins? That's one I get all the time. Isn't Solana out all the time? It's actually been over 1.5 years since the last downtime, which is quite short. And with new technology being developed, such as FireDancer, an independent validator client being built by Jump, it'll lead to even greater resiliency of the network. Other objections, isn't everything on the blockchain in smart contracts EVM? Solana's SVM. How do I build on Solana? So we have a large financial institution that's not public yet, that's building on Solana, and they did it without a single line of Rust code. That's how easy it is to tokenize on Solana using token extensions, which is a program we launched last January of 2024, and has made it just incredibly easy for financial institutions and issuers of all kind to develop permissioned tokens on the public permissionless network. This is another thing we hear a lot. Another objection, especially from financial institutions, is, well, we really need the network to be private. And so, many are considering private blockchains, which are thankfully largely falling out of favor for public blockchains like Solana. But our argument against that is, why permission at the protocol when you can just permission at the token? Continue to access global liquidity on Solana mainnet, but make sure that that token doesn't end up in a wallet of a bad actor. It's very easy to do. And I think we're making headway, with these types of counter arguments.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. A frequent objection that I get is the downtime. Which you say was a year and a half for the last one. And my counter argument is, well, you probably want to bet on a technology platform that is moving fast enough to occasionally break.
I don't love that, but the better one is what DK said, which is, $50 gas fee is an effective outage. And we saw that on Arbitrum and Base, L2s just 2 weeks ago with the flash crash on Friday, October 10th or 11th, or whatever day that was. You had $50 L2 gas fees. That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
That should never happen. And it doesn't happen on Solana, not ever. That doesn't ever happen, and that's thanks to local fee markets. And by the way, we are really appreciative and grateful for where we've come as a ecosystem, technology, everything. I mean, every single day we pinch ourselves, and it just keeps getting better. And it's thanks to everyone here who's interested in contributing to making Solana better. We have had, moments of downtime in the past, and I can't predict the future. But there's no question the network is getting much, much more resilient. And since the last downtime, last February, virtually every L2 and many other L1s have had outages, including Amazon Web Services, who experienced the internet out a week or two ago. Okay, these things happen, but less and less frequently on Solana. It's been over a year and a half, and I hope to say a year from now it's been 2.5 years. It's like, on construction sites, how many days since injury? We're definitely trying to keep that zero. I mean, many days. Sorry, the infinite many days.
Thank you. Okay, you kind of touched on this one already, but I want to kind of go back to it. So you talked about the J curves and the numbers. What are the key inflection points for Solana over the past, say, 12 or 18 months?
I mean, one of the data points that DK didn't have up there that, I would encourage him to potentially include, because I think it really supports the payments narrative that he shared. Stablecoin growth on Solana this year alone has been on a base of 4 some odd billion. We're now close to 16 or maybe even over today. I don't know. But to be growing over 4x on a 4 billion base, and that's steepening. Stablecoins, in my view, is like the biggest story of 2025, thanks to the Genius Act that was encoded to law here domestically, and has, I think, just set up an absolute gold rush around the world for every financial institution to rebuild, on blockchain rails, supporting stablecoins. Solana is the venue for stablecoins. There's no question. Just last week, Western Union announced at Money 2020 in Las Vegas that they're building the future of Western Union entirely on Solana. And more of these institutions are choosing Solana because they evaluate the tech. And the CEO, one of the things he said is, when we were looking at institutional grade tech, Solana was the obvious choice.
That's great. Okay, about the the stablecoin adoption, I guess maybe your answer is going to be, I just answered this, and Western Union is like a key indicator. But what is driving that growth? And the reason that I ask is, um, if you look at the stablecoin providers, for like Tether's the biggest one. I don't think Tether is focused on DeFi, and I don't think they're focused on Solana. Um, it, so what's driving the adoption? It's user demand probably, but are the stablecoin issuers involved in facilitating that adoption? And does the foundation have some role to play with the issuers in kind of facilitating it?
So first, I do think Tether wants to grow on Solana, and Tether has 2 or 3 billion of USDT on Solana. But the breakdown roughly of stablecoins by issuer is Circle is the largest issuer of stablecoins on Solana, I think, with 7-8 billion, maybe even more. That's in part because Jeremy Allaire, the CEO, had quite a early and deep understanding of the promise of the Solana blockchain, and so they were among the first movers of stablecoins on Solana very early on in its life, and we're appreciative for Jeremy placing that bet, and it's been one that's rewarded him and Circle very much. After Circle and Tether, you've got a number of stablecoins with over $1 billion, Paxos, USDG, PayPal, USD, and a number of others. And so we're, starting to see, a number of new entrants, grow very, very fast to, over $1 billion and, with a very high, KCAR. Why are people choosing Solana for stablecoins? One thing that's important to remember is a stablecoin is a bearer instrument. You hold that stablecoin in your wallet. If your wallet is compromised or if the network is compromised, you are SOL. No pun intended. And why do people trust Solana? Well, it's the most used blockchain in the world. It's got incredibly high performance. They know they can move that money very quickly. And then there are on and off ramps to support the movement of that money everywhere around the world. Virtually every local and regional exchange in the world supports Sol the asset and SPL, which is the Solana token standard, to enable easy access to the network and back to fiat rails. And then, of course, there's tons of things you can do with stablecoins on the network. And so I think that's one of the things that's attracting people to move their fiat to Solana, so that they can generate interest on those stables via a variety of different DeFi strategies.
Yeah, we're on kind of both sides of the DeFi strategies for stablecoins here, and the two you mentioned, DFDV has it's like a partnership agreement with USDG Paxos for the Global Dollar Network stablecoin, which was actually incredibly easy to set up with them. They were great. And we're also borrowing some Pi USD right now on Camino. Last night I saw the rates got down to, I think it was 1.5% to borrow. I was very pleased with that. I'm sure it'll be back up. It's probably back up now. Yeah, I guess maybe I want to spend too much time on the stablecoin thing because I'm like personally very interested in it. Does the foundation have like a stablecoin, TVL, total value locked, or stablecoins on the Solana blockchain kind of target or strategy for growing it?
Yes. So Tamar, who leads stablecoins for us, she's based in Berlin, Germany. She's OG crypto. She was at Binance from 2016 to 2020. She joined Solana, I believe, in 2020 or 2021 in its very earliest days. She also got a PhD in stablecoins. She was the first at the University to do that self-directed study and do that. And so she deeply understands crypto. She's well networked around the world, and stable coins is what she wakes up and dreams about and thinks about every single day. And obviously she's just one person, but I think through her work and bringing folks along all over the world to help amplify the strategy and the vision of what stablecoins on Solana can be through partners like Paxos, I think has really driven a lot of interest in Solana stablecoin activity. We obviously are very mindful of competition. Only the paranoid survive is a great quote, and one I certainly think about all the time. Tether on Tron, especially in emerging markets, is something that we very much are mindful of. And then USDT and USDC on Ethereum still have quite a lot of historical legacy TVL, and we're chipping away at that. If you look at growth of stablecoins on Solana versus growth of stablecoins on Ethereum mainnet, I think the chart looks like a J curve on Solana, whereas it's certainly flattened on Ethereum. And so you don't have to model too far out in the future to see stablecoins on Solana getting over 100 billion. I think that'll happen perhaps as early as the end of next year.
Will help.
Thank you.
Oh dear. Have you I guess what's the flow look like, I guess, and have you looked at this? I haven't tried to look at this for the growth on stablecoins on Solana. Is it coming from Ethereum, or is it like net new mints that are showing up on Solana?
I mean, it's both, but a lot of net new mints.
Interesting. Cool. Thank you. I just wanted to kind of flag one thing that you said earlier, and I thought was cool. The ability to get the stable coins onto Solana. So if you deposit like US dollars, say, to any of the exchanges, Coinbase, Kraken, whatever, then you can convert the dollars to stables or just withdraw as a stable directly onto Solana. So, and that's been kind of a great use case for the centralized exchanges coming from a centralized exchange prior. This is kind of one of our big focuses. Let's get USDC across 8 chains or whatever, and then user can deposit from like USDC on Ethereum and withdraw USDC on Solana. There's other ways to bridge, but the centralized exchanges do a good job with it too at a very low fee or no fee.
The one thing I note on that is this is really important if you're looking to on-ramp money onto any blockchain. Is many blockchains are Hotel California. You can come, but you can never leave. And off-ramps is actually, I would say, much more important, because at some point you might want that money back in your bank. And off-ramps is something that, Solana, Ethereum, probably mainnet or way up here in terms of global off-ramps. Everything else is way, way down here. And not to mention just even the ease of use of the applications, and the connectivity of the blockchains. I can't tell you how much money I have stuck on so many different blockchains. It's just impossible to move.
Yeah. My accountant's asking me about some of those. Yeah.
Just say you lost the keys.
Yeah. No, they're just sitting there. Good advice. Voting accident. So, okay, we talked about stablecoins and metrics on stablecoins. What other, and DK had a bunch of wonderful metrics, but what metrics do you look at, or what do you think are the best to reflect the health of the network?
I mean, I think you all did a great job indicating, all the various things that are important: speed, cost, users. We hear a lot about blockchains that haven't launched. Monad, Mega ETH, all the corporate chains, ARC, etc. Cool. Specs are great. No apps, no users, no value. Very hard to do what Solana has done. Again, I'm paranoid. We are very vigilant about competition. We are absolutely 100%, focused on, our mission, which is supporting the growth of the Solana network and the Solana ecosystem. But I think it's very hard to build a general purpose blockchain used by 1% of the world's population now, 80 million monthly users, 99% to go. But it's much harder when you're starting from zero.
Thank you. Okay, changing gears just a bit, maybe. So you mentioned meme coins as like a kind of negative thing on Solana, or that's
I don't think it's negative at all.
I also don't think it's negative. I'm a big meme coin fan. But outside of meme coins, maybe, what are you seeing, or where's the most traction now on Solana? Is it DeFi? Is it consumer apps? I talked to somebody working on the healthcare data management system that was going to build it on Solana recently, or RWAs. Seen a lot of that, I guess. What's the key like adoption happening now?
I mean, I'm going to choose D, all of the above, but on RWA, what I would say is we now have 800 million of TVL, real world assets, RWA, on Solana. By the end of this month, we'll certainly be above $1 billion, probably closer to 1.3, 1.4 billion. That's grown from zero over the last 15 months. I think is illustrative of institutional adoption, because you see, the largest asset managers in the world, Fidelity, BlackRock, Franklin Templeton, all choosing, to build and support the Solana blockchain. And I think that really those serve as great reference, kind of customers for folks around the world to do the same. And we're increasingly seeing the largest banks, the largest asset managers, if they're going to support blockchain at all, they're going to support, Solana and Ethereum mainnet. And in an increasing number of cases, we're even seeing some folks go Solana first. And that's, of course, something, we believe will happen more and more in the future. I think it does take, a bit of vision today, if you're a large institution like Western Union, to say we're going to be exclusive on Solana, which, they did last week. But more and more folks are coming along and they're seeing the tech, they're seeing the adoption, and they're saying, this is where I need to be.
Okay. How does the foundation prioritize this stuff? I mean, this sounds like a lot.
Do I look like I got some sleep last night? No, listen, we're so grateful, to everyone building on Solana and helping us tell the story like you're doing. It would not be possible for 65 people to generate, the type of activity that we see on the Solana network. $2 billion in revenue, 80 million monthly users, over 100 million daily transactions, et cetera, 16 billion in stablecoins, 15 billion of DeFi TVL, and on and on and on. And it's only possible thanks to, the large and growing number of global advocates for Solana. One program that is worth mentioning is super teams. Raise your hands if you're familiar with Solana super teams, a handful of you. So one of the ways that we make sure to propagate the community both globally as well as locally is through super teams. And we now have super teams in over a dozen markets around the world. And I'm sure I'm going to miss many: Canada, UK, Nigeria, UAE, Germany, France, Japan, South Korea. I'm sure I'm missing many. And in each of those markets, there are local leaders. And by the way, these are not folks that work at the Solana Foundation. These are just people who love the Solana network and want to help support and propagate the Solana community. They host local events. They bring people together. They do user education. And it's really incredible how that can help activate more and more people to build on Solana.
Thank you. Let's change gears before we run out of time here, I think, um, to technology. What's coming, I guess? What's the biggest technical milestones for Solana that you're expecting over the next, say, 12 to 24 months?
Yeah, I would say there's a few. One is FireDancer, as I mentioned previously. This is a independent validator client that will increase theoretical throughput on the network from 65,000 today to 1 million. In addition, being a second validator client, it will enable validators to kind of roll between the two should they want to or need to. So, for example, when Amazon went out, a week or two ago, you could tell when you were using an application if they were relying on Amazon or not because you'd get a 404. The best practice would be to be able to quickly deploy on another cloud, GCP, Azure, whatever. And it's kind of same thing for validators and validator software, be able to go back to Agave or to FireDancer. And by the way, there are versions of FireDancer, including FireDancer, that are already live with some mainnet validator activity. But I think that's a fundamentally important improvement to the resilience of the network, as well as the future bandwidth that the network can support. We're not needing or using 1 million TPS yet, but I hope and expect that we will. So that's number one. Number two would be Alpenglow. Alpenglow is a major update to the Solana consensus mechanism, which is a modified proof of stake consensus mechanism called proof of history. The kind of core innovation that Tolly and the founders had was this idea of parallelized block production. Solana still stands alone today as the only blockchain at scale that utilizes this capability, but Alpenglow will radically improve the speed of the network and settlement. It will take and separate voting and non-voting transactions for validators, reducing the cost to run and participate in the network as a validator, and decreasing settlement from around 400 milliseconds to 150 milliseconds. Why is that important? That already is very, very fast. That's, less than a second. 200 milliseconds is generally the threshold at which a human feels is instantaneous. So after Alpenglow, you will basically, when using Solana, feel that the transactions are instantaneous. And that's pretty incredible. There's a whole number of other, technology improvements in the works. Some that are public, some that aren't, but generally speaking, want to make the network more efficient to compete with the likes of Hyperliquid on the perp side, want to decrease account rent to make Solana cheaper to build on for developers, want to create more flexibility from sequencer fees. One of the reasons corporate chains are starting and others are choosing to build on L2s like Robinhood are to capture more of the transaction fee revenue. This is a kind of a sensible act if you're a company that has an obligation to maximize shareholder value. And so, we want to bring more of those folks into Solana without fragmenting liquidity, which is paramount, right? Like that's something that we will never budge on, because unified liquidity is one of the kind of fundamental commitments, of Solana. But we do want to be able to bring more institutions to build on top of the Solana network while they being able to generate more revenue from the activity that they're creating.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, about the validators then, do you get objections or criticisms on or about Solana still on decentralization, or is this largely resolved from the, at least in the conversations that you're having with institutions?
No, anybody that's like using first principles and doing their own research can clearly tell, like, Solana has a very high Nakamoto coefficient, which is a measure of decentralization, thousands of validators operating independently all over the world. I think that's crypto Twitter fun.
I agree. Okay, let's go back to capital markets again. So there's a few, at least, institutional allocators in the room here. From the foundation's perspective, what are the most important signals that Solana is, quote, ready for institutions?
Are we talking about the asset or the technology?
I'd say the technology.
The technology. I think the technology has been proven unequivocally to be able to support the network activity at scale to be the global settlement layer that we envision for Solana. If you look at January 19th, that was the day that the Trump meme coin launched prior to his inauguration. 3 million people were KYC'd just by MoonPay that day to buy the Trump meme coin. Something like $2 billion of stablecoins were minted that day to buy the Trump meme coin and other things on the blockchain. Solana did not even hiccup. And I think that was a really important day that proved to everyone that Solana was capable of handling an enormous spike in usage without missing a beat. 2 Fridays ago, I think TK had a slide up here during the flash crash where EVM chains and Ethereum mainnet especially were effectively unusable. Solana held its own incredibly well. And there are some data points you can look at, but Solana maintained a 100% uptime during that period. And again, in public markets, you would have had a halt. Like if there was like something like that happened at 2 p.m. today, like NYSE and Nasdaq would halt trading, they'd resolve whatever issues, and they'd reopen trading when they thought it was safe to do so. Solana runs 24/7 permissionlessly and can handle the type of network surge and activity that very few technology platforms can handle. And that it does this in a decentralized fashion with, validators participating all over the world, in my opinion, is truly remarkable and a testament to the institutional grade that Solana has.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, the Trump token launch was kind of the biggest one for me. We were doing transactions with DFDV through the liquidation day, the 10th, I think. And that was impressive. But I was working at Kraken through the Trump meme coin launch, or maybe it was right after I left. Anyway, we were looking at the numbers on Solana, and we're like, holy shit, like the centralized exchanges couldn't have handled this. Coinbase would be down, Kraken would be down. It's unbelievable. And I don't know, it just made me take a step back and say, whoa, it's like, we're ready. That was very cool to see.
And I'll just, note, and this may need to be maybe one more question, Joseph, but
thank you.
Anyone can issue a token permissionlessly on the Solana network, and that happens thousands of times a day. Nobody at the foundation had any prior knowledge of the Trump meme coin. I remember being in the airport in Switzerland, returning home to the United States. Somebody posted in Slack with a SolScan, which is the block explorer, with a link to the Trump token, which had just launched, and people were like, is this real? And, I started looking on crypto Twitter, and, there's some early chatter about it. And, they say, boarding. And so I got to shut my laptop, get on the airplane, no Wi-Fi on the fucking airplane. And, I've got no clue. I land, and then there's like, a multi-billion-dollar token on the network, and I read about all the activity that happened. And, this is something that I think is truly unique and only possible on Solana.
Yeah, it was impressive, I gotta say. Okay, we're pretty much out of time, but we're supposed to do audience questions now. Maybe we could take a quick one or a very quick two. All right. Is it? Hey.
Oh yeah, we have a internal code name, Project Asset Express. we're trying to, so we want every asset on Earth trading on Solana. That's the vision. All assets trading on Solana 24/7, all global market participants able to buy, sell, trade those assets. And so we want everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Every financial SKU on Earth, Bitcoin, XRP, RWA, obviously the dollar is already tokenized via stablecoins, gold, et cetera, et cetera. So absolutely 100% ETH, right? I don't care where the asset originates. Solana is the infrastructure. We want every asset on Earth trading on Solana.